My child, hear this and do not scroll past it. You did not arrive here by chance, and this message did not cross your path as a coincidence. It is not random that your eyes are fixed on these words in this exact moment. This moment was written into the timeline of my creation, long before you drew your first breath, woven into your destiny by the one who knit you together in your mother's womb. You are here because heaven aligned it, and I have brought you here to tell you the truth about who you are. A truth the world has kept from you. A truth your own soul has been whispering to you for years. You are not who they told you that you were. You are the lost child of a royal family, an heir who was raised outside the palace. And tonight I am going to bring you home to your name. And there is a reason this truth is reaching you tonight, and not on some other night. You have felt something stirring in you lately, a restlessness that will not settle, a sense that you are standing at the edge of a change you cannot yet see the shape of. That was not random, and it was not your imagination hoping for too much. That was your spirit sensing that the season of hiding was ending before your eyes could confirm it. I do not send a revelation like this into an empty moment. I send it right before a homecoming, the way a father sends word ahead before a lost child is finally brought back. Something in you has been asking without words, why nothing ever felt like enough, why you always sensed you were meant for more, why you could never quite belong. Tonight I am answering that question, because you are finally ready to hear the answer without letting it frighten you. The stirring you feel is not anxiety, it is recognition. It is the blood of your true family calling you home. For years you have carried a strange feeling you could never quite explain, a sense that you did not fully belong to the places you found yourself in, as though you were walking among others, but always perceiving something more, something invisible brushing past you. You tried to quiet it. You tried to dismiss it as restlessness, as discontent, as something wrong with you. Yet it followed you through every season, reminding you that your identity was greater than what the world allowed you to believe. Hear me now, because this is the beginning of everything. You have not been lost. You have been hidden, kept safe until the appointed time. And the veil that covered your eyes is lifting, and the truth is breaking through like dawn after a long, long night. You are not simply one among many, you are set apart. You are a child of the King, adopted into royalty, marked and sealed by my own hand. You are no longer a slave, but my child, and since you are my child, I have made you also an heir. That is from Galatians, chapter 4, verse 7, an heir, my child. Not a servant hoping to be noticed, an heir who has always owned what they were begging for. You may wonder how you could carry such an identity and never be told. Understand that the world you were raised in had every reason to keep it from you. A slave who never learns they are actually an heir will serve for free their whole life. A royal child who is convinced they are ordinary will never claim the authority that could dismantle the very systems that profited from their smallness. So the lie was not accidental. From the time you were young, voice after voice told you to be realistic, to lower your expectations, to stop dreaming, to accept your place. And slowly, without any single moment you could point to, you learned to see yourself through their eyes instead of mine. You learned to call your royal hunger discontentment. You learned to call your set-apart nature a problem. You learned to make yourself small enough to fit in a world that was never your true home. But a lie, no matter how long it is repeated, cannot change the truth of your blood. You can raise a king's child in a servant's quarters and dress them in a servant's clothes, and it will not change one drop of who they are. It will only delay the day they remember. Tonight is that day. The delay is over, and the voices that spent your whole life telling you who you were not are about to be silenced by the one who formed you and knows exactly who you are. This is why the world never fully made sense to you. Shallow pursuits could not satisfy your hunger, because you were built for a kingdom, not for scraps. The lies that deceived others could not fully blind you, because royalty recognizes counterfeit. Your heart ached deeper than most. Your intuition cut sharper. Your dreams cried louder, and you endured storms that should have crushed you, fires that should have consumed you, silences that should have broken you, and yet here you are, not destroyed, but refined. You are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, my own special possession, called out of darkness into my marvelous light. That is from 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9. Everything in you that never fit the ordinary world was never a defect. It was the blood of royalty remembering itself. If your spirit is beginning to recognize the truth, type, I was hidden, not lost. I know the particular ache this explains because you have carried it a long time. It is the ache of never quite belonging anywhere, of standing in the middle of your own life and feeling like a guest in it. You watched other people settle so easily into things that could never satisfy you. And you wondered what was wrong with you that you could not settle too. You sat in rooms full of people and still felt alone, not because no one was near, but because something in you was reaching for a home none of them could give. You tried to force yourself to want what everyone else wanted, to be content with the small dreams the world handed you. And it never worked, because a royal child cannot be satisfied living like a commoner. That restlessness was never your flaw. It was your bloodline. It was the homesickness of an heir who was born for a palace and raised in a field, whose spirit kept remembering a throne their eyes had never seen. You were not discontent because something was wrong with you. You were discontent because something was calling you. And tonight, that calling has a voice, and it is telling you the truth about your name. If you can feel the truth of who you really are, type, I am a child of the King. And do not let the enemy twist this into the old lie that you were an accident, that you were unwanted, that you slipped into this world unnoticed and unplanned. Nothing about you was an accident. I chose you deliberately, on purpose, with intention before the foundations of the earth were laid. You were not an afterthought in my creation. You were a decision. I knew the color of your eyes and the sound of your laugh and the shape of your calling before your parents ever met. I knew the wounds you would carry and the strength you would find, and I chose you still, not in spite of your story, but through it. The people who made you feel like a burden, like too much, like a mistake, were speaking from their own blindness, not from the truth of heaven in the courts of eternity. You were wanted, you were named, you were assigned a destiny that no one else could carry. A royal child is never an accident. A royal child is planned, awaited, and rejoiced over. And that is exactly what you were. Long before the world got its hands on the story and tried to tell you otherwise. Let me tell you how this word even reached you, because it will matter to a heart like yours. You did not pay anything for it. It came to you freely, likely on a night the old feeling of not belonging was sitting close. And it came freely because someone who once felt exactly like you, like a stranger to their own life, an heir who did not yet know their own name, chose to sow a seed so that the next hidden child of the King would find their way home too. Tonight, you are that child. Someone you will never meet already made a way for this truth to reach you in your searching. So tonight, you owe nothing. Tonight, you simply receive. And if there ever comes a season when you have fully stepped into who you are and I lead you, you may choose to become that for the next lost heir still wandering, sowing a seed of any amount so another royal child hears on the night they need it most, that they were never ordinary. The link is there for whenever you are ready, and never as a price for a single thing I am speaking over you. Now understand why you had to be hidden for so long, because you have grieved those hidden years as if they were wasted. They were not wasted. They were protection. A royal heir who is revealed too early before their character is formed is a target the enemy can destroy before they ever rise. So I kept you low. I kept you quiet. I let the world underestimate you, because the underestimation was your covering. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I set you apart. That is from Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5. You were set apart from the beginning, but set apart things are not always displayed early. Often they are stored, guarded, matured in secret, and brought out only when the appointed hour has come. Your hour is coming. The hiding is ending. What was concealed is about to be revealed, and the ones who only ever knew the smaller version of you are about to meet who you truly are. Look at how I have always done this. Joseph was betrayed by his own family and thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, forgotten in a prison. And all of it was the hidden road to a throne. Moses was born under a death sentence, hidden in a basket, then hidden again for 40 years in the wilderness, and only then did I call him to deliver a nation. Esther was an orphan raised in secrecy, positioned quietly in a palace, until the one moment her whole life had been preparing her for. And Elijah heard my voice not in the earthquake or the fire, but in the whisper that came in the silence. Do you see the pattern? The ones I use most were refined in obscurity first. Your wilderness was never punishment. It was the birthplace of prophets. And notice something about every one of them. None of them looked like royalty in the hidden years. Joseph looked like a slave and then a prisoner, not a future ruler over nations. Moses looked like a shepherd who had failed his calling, hiding in the desert for 40 years, not the deliverer who would part a sea. Esther looked like an ordinary orphan girl, not a queen who would save her entire people. David was left in the fields with the sheep, while his brothers were paraded before the prophet, the least likely of his family, and he was the one I chose. Do you see it? I have never chosen the way the world chooses. The world looks at the outside, at the resume, at the position, at who is already standing in the spotlight. I look at the heart, and I delight in taking the overlooked one, the hidden one, the one everybody else counted out, and revealing them as the one I had marked all along. So if you have looked at your own life and seen nothing that resembled royalty, understand that you are in excellent company. That is precisely how every hidden heir looked right before I revealed them. The obscurity was never a verdict on your worth. It was the disguise I placed over your calling until the appointed time. The isolation that felt like exile was sharpening your hearing, stripping away illusions, teaching you to know my voice from all the others. If you can finally see the hidden years as preparation and not as rejection type, the wilderness was preparing me, and understand why an heir must be hidden before they are revealed, because this heals the resentment you may still carry toward the wasted feeling years. A prince who is displayed too early before his character is formed becomes a target and a fool. Power placed in an unformed hand destroys the one holding it. So a wise king hides his heir, lets them grow in obscurity, lets them learn humility in the low places, lets them be underestimated so their enemies never see them coming. That is exactly what I did with you. The reason you were overlooked was not that you were unworthy. It was that I was protecting you. The reason your gifts did not open all at once was not that I forgot them. It was that I was building the vessel strong enough to hold them without breaking. Every year you thought you were falling behind, you were actually being fortified. Every door that stayed closed was keeping you out of rooms that would have destroyed you before you were ready. The hiddenness was never my rejection of you. It was my protection of you, and the very fact that you are only now hearing this is proof that the hiding is ending and the revealing has begun. I know how easily a word like this can fade by morning, so if it is awakening something in you, do not let this be the last time my voice finds you here. Subscribe and turn on the reminder, not for a number, but so that when I speak the next word over your identity and your rising, it reaches you in the exact season you need it. I am not finished revealing who you are, and I do not want you to miss what comes next. Your difference was never a flaw, my child. It was a signature. Even as a child, you felt things others ignored and questioned what others simply accepted. You carried a strength that made no sense to the people around you. Strangers felt safe near you. Broken people were drawn to you. The hurting opened their hearts to you without knowing why. That was never accident. They were sensing the anointing on your life, the imprint of a royal calling written into your spirit, even when you yourself could not read it. And the enemy fought you, not because you were weak, but because your awakening means his undoing. He attacked the heir precisely because he knew what the heir would become. But greater is the one who lives in you than the one who is in the world. And no weapon formed against a royal child can prevail because you were never walking alone. Every chapter of your story, even the ones that felt like endings, was really a beginning. You thought you were buried, but you were planted, and now the seed is breaking open and the life inside you is rising. And let this settle a question that may have tormented you for years, the question of why life seemed to come against you so much harder than it came against others. Why the attacks felt so personal. Why every time you tried to rise, something rose against you. Why you have had to fight for things other people were simply handed. Hear me, you were not cursed. You were contested. The enemy does not waste his heaviest assaults on lives that carry no threat to him. He fights hardest against the ones whose awakening would cost him the most. He came against you early, and often precisely because he saw the heir before you did, and he was trying to destroy the royal calling on your life before you could ever step into it. But every attack that failed to destroy you only revealed how protected you truly were. You are still here. The weapons were formed, but they did not prosper. The pit did not become your grave. The wilderness did not become your end. And that survival was never your own strength holding you together. It was a father who refused to let his hidden heir be taken. So stop reading the intensity of your battles as evidence that you were forsaken. Read it correctly as evidence of how valuable you are and how much was always at stake in whether or not you would remember your name. If you know now that what looked like your burial was actually your planting type, I was planted, not buried. Now here's something you need to understand about this season, because it will spare you unnecessary pain. As your light rises, not everyone around you will rejoice. Some will misunderstand you, some will resist you. Some will try to hold you to the smaller version of yourself that once fit neatly into their comfort. This is the ache of separation, and it is part of coming into your inheritance. Every branch that bears fruit, I prune, so that it will bear even more fruit. That is from John chapter 15, verse 2. The pruning hurts, but it is never destruction. It is preparation for greater growth. The relationships that broke, the betrayals you endured, the sudden silences that followed, they were not your failure. They were my alignment. I was narrowing your circle so you could rise without carrying the weight of people who were never meant for your next season. So do not grieve every person who fell away. Some were pruned so that your fruit could multiply, and do not despair over the emptiness the pruning left behind, because I never remove without intending to replace. As the dust of separation clears, I am bringing your true family into view. The ones who will recognize your light not as a threat, but as a confirmation. The ones who will walk with you not out of convenience, but out of covenant. You have spent so long surrounded by people who could only tolerate a smaller version of you that you may have forgotten what it feels like to be fully received. That is coming. There are people I have been preparing for you who will not need you to shrink, who will celebrate the very things others could not handle, who will feel more alive in your presence rather than more threatened. The loneliness of the hidden years was never meant to be permanent. It was clearing the ground so that when your true tribe arrives, there is room for them to stand. So do not fill the empty space with the wrong company out of fear of the silence. What I am bringing is worth the wait, and do not fear the rejection you faced, because rejection was never evidence of your unworthiness. It was evidence of your calling. You were never made to blend in with a world you were sent to change. If you can receive that type, the rejection was proof of my calling. And let me speak to the specific wound of betrayal, because for a royal child it cuts deeper than most. You have been wounded by people you trusted with your softest places, people who were close enough to see your heart and chose to harm it anyway. And it left you asking a question that has haunted you for years, whether there was something in you that invited it, something that made you deserve to be treated that way. Hear me clearly, you did not. The betrayal was never about your worth. Sometimes those closest to an heir are the very ones who cannot bear to watch them rise, because your light exposed the smallness they had made peace with. Joseph's own brothers threw him in the pit, not because he was worthless, but because they could not stand the dream on his life. The wounds you carry from the people who should have protected you are the same wounds every hidden heir in my story has carried, and I did not waste a single one of them. I used the pit to position Joseph for the palace. I will use what was done to you the very same way. The betrayal did not disqualify you. In my hands it became the strange and painful road that led you straight to your throne. And hear this, because it will steady you every time the shame tries to speak. The gifts and the calling I placed on your life cannot be revoked. They cannot be erased by your mistakes, canceled by your failures, or forfeited by the years you spent not knowing who you were. An earthly inheritance can be lost through one bad decision, but the inheritance of a royal child of heaven is secured by the Father, not by the child's performance. This is why no season of wandering could ever disqualify you. You may have wasted years. You may have believed the lie and lived beneath your name for longer than you want to admit. You may carry regret over the time you cannot get back, but the calling never left you during any of it. It waited. It stayed sealed on your spirit through every wrong turn, because I do not give a calling and then snatch it back when my child stumbles. What I place, I keep. So the enemy will try to use your past to convince you that you missed your moment, that the door has closed, that you disqualified yourself. Do not believe him. The door of your calling does not close on the days you fail. It waits for the day you finally turn around and remember. And you are remembering right now. Let me pause and speak simply to you now, as the ministry that carries these words. This message found you tonight only because someone before you gave so that it could, someone who finally discovered who they were, and, out of gratitude, sowed so the next hidden heir would be found too. Somewhere tonight there is another chosen one who has spent their whole life feeling like they never belonged anywhere, aching for exactly the truth you just received. If I ever lead you, you can become the reason it reaches them, sowing a seed of any amount so these words of identity keep finding the ones still wandering, still convinced they are ordinary. You would simply be passing forward what was freely handed to you. Every seed sown in love is remembered. The link is in the description and pinned in the comments, only ever as a gift for the next heart, never as a condition of your own. So let me tell you what it means that you were planted and not buried. When a seed goes into the ground, everything about it looks like an ending. It is covered in darkness. It is pressed down under the weight of the soil. To anyone watching, it appears to be lost, gone, finished. But the seed knows a secret the soil does not. The burial is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of the harvest. Everything you walked through that looked like loss was actually the ground I was planting you in. The darkness was not your grave. It was your germination. And now, in this season, the shell that protected you is cracking open, and the life that was always inside you is pushing toward the light. This is why you feel the stirring you cannot explain, the sense that something is about to break, the restlessness that will not let you stay where you were. That is not anxiety, that is resurrection. That is an heir waking up. Do not fear the breaking. The breaking is how what is inside you finally gets out. Consider how a seed actually grows, because it will change how you see everything you have walked through. When a seed is planted, the first thing that happens is that its shell breaks. The very casing that protected it for so long must crack, or nothing new can come out. And to the seed, that breaking must feel like the end. Like everything solid about its identity is falling apart. But the breaking is not death. It is the only doorway to the harvest. That is what has been happening to you. The identity the world built around you. The small self you were told to accept. The shell of who you thought you were has been cracking, and it has felt like falling apart. But you were not falling apart. You were opening. Everything that broke in you was the casing that could no longer contain what I planted inside, and a seed does not get to choose the timing of its own harvest. It rises when the season is right, when the conditions above the soil have finally aligned. Your season has aligned, the soil has been prepared, the rains have come, and what was buried in darkness is now being pulled up toward the light by a force stronger than anything that tried to keep you down. You are not ending, you are germinating, and the whole field is about to see what was hidden in the ground. And let me tell you what rises from ground like yours, because a seed buried this deep and pressed this hard does not come up small. The seeds that endure the longest darkness produce the strongest harvest, because everything that tried to crush them only drove their roots deeper. You will not rise fragile. You will rise with roots that reach further than most. Roots grown in the very seasons you thought were killing you, so that when the winds come against your new life, and they will come, you will not be moved. The harvest coming out of your hidden years will surprise even you. Gifts you buried because no one valued them will begin to bear fruit. Dreams you laid down because they seemed impossible will begin to stir with life again. Doors that were sealed against you will open, not because you finally became worthy, but because your appointed season finally arrived. And the very people who watched you struggle in the field will watch you rise from it, and they will not be able to deny that something was always in you that they could not see. This is what I do with a hidden heir. I do not bring them up quietly and unnoticed. I let the long burial make the rising unmistakable, so that when you finally stand in the light, no one can call it luck. They will know it was me, keeping a promise I made over you before you were ever born. The clues of your royalty have always been there, hidden in your journey like breadcrumbs left by heaven to lead you home. Your intuition that knew things before you were told. Your sensitivity that felt what others could not. Your dreams that came true. Your discernment that felt like knowing before knowing. The way you survived what should have ended you. The way darkness always seemed to fear you more than you understood. All of it was evidence of the royal spirit within you. Think about how often you knew something you had no natural way of knowing. How often you felt a warning before the danger came, sensed a person's true intentions before they revealed them, or simply knew, deep beneath your thoughts, which way to go when there was no logical reason for the certainty. The world would tell you it was luck or instinct, but you knew it was something more. That was the discernment of an heir. The kind of knowing that comes from a spirit still connected to its true home. And think about how you carried weight that should have crushed you. The losses, the betrayals, the seasons of lack, the nights you did not know how you would make it to morning, and yet you did, again and again, with a strength you could never quite explain and never took credit for. That strength was not your own. It was the sustaining hand of a father who never once let his hidden heir be destroyed. Even in the pit, you were being kept. Even in the field, you were being watched over. The very fact that you are still here, still standing, still able to hear this truth and feel it stir something in you, is the proof that the royal life in you was never extinguished. No matter how many times the darkness tried, you were never meant only to survive. You were chosen to rise, to heal, to lead, to remind others of who they are, because your awakening was never meant for you alone. Your light was never given for display. It was given for direction. That is why you feel the urgency now to step forward, to use your gifts, to speak, to build, to lift others. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and my glory has risen upon you. That is from Isaiah chapter 60, verse 1. The time of hiding is over. The time of shining has begun, and let me show you what the revealing will look like, because it is closer than you think. It will not always arrive with trumpets. Often it begins quietly, in ordinary ways, the way dawn does not announce itself, but simply becomes undeniable. You will notice doors opening that stayed shut for years, not because you forced them, but because the season finally turned. You will notice the right people beginning to recognize something in you, drawn to your light instead of threatened by it. You will notice opportunities finding you, favor arriving from directions you were not watching. A strange new ease where there used to be endless striving, and you will notice something shift inside yourself first. A quiet confidence that no longer needs the world's permission. A peace that does not flinch when people misunderstand you. The ones who only ever knew the hidden, underestimated version of you will not quite know what to make of who you are becoming. Let them adjust. You are not required to stay small so that people who never saw your crown can remain comfortable. The heir is coming out of hiding, and the field that once buried you is about to become the ground you rise from. Your season of revealing has finally come, and nothing formed in darkness can keep a royal child in the ground once heaven has called them into the light. So now, my child, it is time to reclaim your inheritance, and this requires something from you. You no longer wait for permission. You no longer beg for the validation of people who could never see your crown. You stop asking the world to tell you who you are, and you begin to agree with what heaven has already declared over you. Speak life over yourself. Let go of the stories that kept you small. Release the pain that tried to define you. Reject every lie that said you were unworthy, forgettable, or ordinary. Guard your peace as holy ground and protect your spirit as the crown jewel it is. Walk as royalty even before the world sees your crown, because you were never waiting to be chosen. You were chosen before the foundations of the earth were laid. If you are ready to stop begging for a seat at a table you were born to own, type, I reclaim my inheritance, and understand the authority that comes with your name, because a royal child speaks differently than an orphan does. An orphan pleads, hoping to be given scraps. An heir declares, knowing what already belongs to them. For too long you have been praying like a beggar about things that were already your inheritance, asking me for permission to have what I already placed your name upon before the foundation of the world. That posture is ending tonight. You will begin to speak over your own life the way heaven speaks over it. When fear tells you that you are behind, you will declare that your steps are ordered and your time is coming. When shame replays the old story, you will declare that the old self was buried and a new one has risen. When the enemy whispers that you are ordinary, you will declare the truth of your bloodline, that you are a child of the King and an heir of the promise. This is not arrogance. Arrogance is claiming what was never yours. This is inheritance, agreeing with what your father has already decreed. So guard your mouth, because you carry the authority of the family you were born into. Stop cursing your own future with the words of your past wounds. Speak life. Speak identity. Speak as one who finally knows their own name, and watch how heaven moves to establish what a royal child declares. And let me show you how to live from this, because a truth that stays in one moment fades, and this one must become the way you walk. From tomorrow forward, carry yourself as who you now know you are, not with arrogance, but with a quiet, settled dignity that does not need anyone's approval to stand. Guard your peace as holy ground, because a royal child does not hand their inner kingdom to whoever demands access to it. Protect your mornings, giving me the first quiet moments before the world can tell you who to be, because that is where a hidden heir learns to hear their father's voice above the noise. Watch the company you keep, letting the pruning stand and refusing to drag back into your life what heaven already removed. When you feel the pull to shrink, to perform smallness, to apologize for the fullness of who you are, catch it and refuse it gently. And when you are tempted to earn a love that should be freely given, or to beg for a place that is already yours, remember that heirs do not audition for their own inheritance. Live deliberately serve when it costs you. Speak truth even when it shakes the room. Say no when your spirit grows heavy, and walk through your ordinary days knowing that a royal child carries the atmosphere of the palace into every field they enter. This is not about becoming someone new. It is about finally living as who you have always been. And do not shrink back, no matter how the resistance rises, because with every awakening comes opposition. The distractions will multiply. The old patterns will try to reclaim you. The voices that preferred the smaller you will grow loud, but you were built for exactly this. Your endurance is your evidence. You may walk through valleys, but you no longer walk them as a victim. You walk them as an heir with authority, with the King himself beside you. So when doubt creeps in, when the old fear whispers that you imagined all of this, do not argue with it for an hour. Simply remember who your father is. Remember whose blood of covenant you were bought with. Remember that a king's child does not lose their identity just because they had a hard season away from the palace. The identity was never based on your circumstances. It was based on your father, and your father does not change. If you refuse to shrink back into who you were before you knew the truth, type, "I will not shrink back into the smaller me." And hear this, because your awakening was never meant to end with you. A royal child does not come into their inheritance only to keep it. They come into it to lift a whole household, a whole lineage, a whole line of people who are still waiting for one of them to rise. The freedom you are stepping into is not only your freedom, it reaches backward, answering the prayers of those in your bloodline who cried out for a breakthrough they never lived to see, and it reaches forward, rewriting the inheritance of the children who come after you. The cycles that bound your family for generations meet their end in you. What was handed down in pain will now be handed down in blessing, because one heir finally remembered who they were and refused to keep living beneath their name. That is the weight and the wonder of what is happening to you. You are not only being found, you are becoming the one through whom others will be found. Your light was never given for display. It was given for direction, so that the one still lost in the field can see a royal child standing in the light and finally believe they might be royalty too. If you receive that your rising will set others free, type, "I rise so others can rise too." Let me pause once more, plainly, as the ministry that brings you these words. Everything you received tonight reached you because someone before you made it possible. Someone who came home to their identity and chose to make a way for the next lost heir to be found. Right now there is another chosen one who has spent their whole life believing they were nothing, who needs the exact truth you found tonight. If I ever lead you, you can be the reason it reaches them, sowing a seed of any amount, So these words of identity keep traveling to the ones still wandering in the field, still convinced they are ordinary. You would simply be passing forward what was freely handed to you. The link is in the description and pinned for you in the comments, only ever as a gift, never as a price for your own homecoming. So receive this blessing over your life tonight, as a father speaks it over a child being brought home. I bless the years you spent feeling like you did not belong, that they would be revealed as the years I was hiding and forming you. I bless the wilderness you walked, that it would be seen for what it truly was, the training ground of an heir. I bless the relationships that fell away, that you would understand them as pruning and not as failure. I bless the gift and the calling on your life, which cannot be revoked and cannot be erased. I bless your awakening, that it would rise steady and grounded, without pride and without fear. And I bless your homecoming, that you would finally walk in the identity I gave you before the world ever had a chance to lie to you about it. I bless the crown you could not see, that it would settle on your head without inflating your heart. I bless the throne that has your name on it, that you would sit in it with the humility of one who never forgot the field they came from. I bless the ones still lost in that field, that your rising would light the way home for them too. And I bless the rest of your days, that you would never again live as a beggar over what was always your inheritance. You are not who they said you were. You are mine, you are royalty, you are an heir, and you are coming home. So carry this with you when you leave, and return to it on the days the old lie tries to fit itself back over your life. When you feel ordinary again, remember your father. When you feel forgotten, remember you were only ever hidden. When the field tries to convince you that you belong in the dirt, remember that a seed in the ground is not buried, it is planted, and planted things rise. The world raised you outside the palace, but it could never change your blood. You were royalty in the pit, royalty in the wilderness, royalty in every season you felt like no one, because your identity was never based on where you were. It was based on whose you are, and whose you are does not change. So walk into it now without fear, chosen one, and do not look back at the small life you were told to accept, because where you are going, you will not need it. Before you go, subscribe and stay close to this house, so that when I speak the next word over your rising, it finds you. And share this with someone who has spent their whole life feeling like a stranger to their own soul, because they may be an heir who has simply never been told the truth. Your obedience in sending it may be the very thing that brings them home. And as your final declaration tonight, if your whole heart receives it, type, "I remember who I am." Say it like someone waking up from a long sleep. Someone who spent years answering to the wrong name and has finally heard their true one spoken by their father's voice. Because that is exactly what has happened tonight. You did not stumble onto a nice message. You were summoned home. The veil was lifted, the name was returned, and the field that raised you does not get the final word over the child of the palace. From this night forward, walk differently. Hold your head differently. Let the old lie fall off of you like the rags of a servant, and put on the truth like a robe that was always yours. You were never ordinary. You were never forgotten. You were never truly lost. You were only hidden, kept, protected, and prepared until the appointed hour when heaven would part the veil and say what it is saying to you right now. You are the lost child of a royal family. The search is over. The waiting is over. The hiding is over. And tonight, at last, you have been found. Welcome home, chosen one. Now rise and go live like the heir you have always been.